A crazy night here wraps up with the Utah Jazz getting an overtime win over the Indiana Pacers. A night that included play call or referee calls. I don't think anyone really is quite sure what happened, except for Ron Boone's got an explanation. Ron was on TV. It included a woman screaming the entire broadcast, and the Twitter world went crazy. It included Gordon Hayward and the Utah Jazz completely collapsing with 2:35 left. They were up by 8 and didn't finish the game, and then it includes the Jazz somehow coming back from that disaster to win it in overtime. It might be the best capsule of this season that we have. It's a team that's not quite all the way there yet. It's still young enough that it makes colossal errors, and yet it's got enough fight, and it's got a guy in Al Jefferson that's pretty special late in games to get them through a bunch of these things.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that's one of the greatest stats that I think you've ever told me that it's stuck in my mind, is that, you know, how efficient and how Al Jefferson shoots over 50% in the last 5 or 6 minutes of a basketball game. And it was proven tonight because, I mean, he just took it right to Hibbert. It got to the point where they took Hibbert off of Al Jefferson to put David West on him just to try to cool him off.
Well, they had to change something because he had it rolling, and you know, I thought the other thing is we've seen out of Al, he is just going to the rim a lot more than he has. I have the numbers on that. He's going to the rim this month 5 times a game. He was at about 2.4 before that. He really has just, and he was using his quickness, which we don't see very often, against Roy Hibbert. He was really fabulous late in the game. I thought his quote afterwards, "I'm the go-to guy. Like, that's my burden," and that is a huge burden in this league. There are not many guys that can handle it.
Well, and the adjustments that players have to make during the course of a basketball game, you like to see that because Al is not one of those guys that that's going to shoot over a 6'11" guy. If he's going to let the 6'11", 7 foot, well, he's 7'2". If he's going to let him stay right in front of you. So Al found out that, okay, I can beat this guy off the dribble. I can pump fake him and get him to get off balance, and then I can get my little shot off. And he did that over and over and over again. But it was one of those basketball games where mistakes cost both teams, and the Jazz ended up winning it in overtime.
Well, the story of the game, really, for most of it, was the Jazz' complete inability to get defensive rebounds, and the Pacers' incredible propensity for turnovers.
I just couldn't believe the way the Pacers were turning the basketball over.
I mean, there's even plays where David West is holding the ball there, and Jamal
I'll take
that off the platter.
And Watson got one there as well off of David West. You know, just not focusing and not being engaged on what's going on out there on the floor and losing concentration. That ends up costing you basketball games, and that hurt the Pacers here tonight. This team fights hard. They play very, very hard. They make big shots. Defensively, they flat out get after you. The Jazz was just getting killed on the boards. I just couldn't believe it. I just, how are the Jazz winning this game? You know, when they're getting killed like that. And then you look at the fact that the Pacers were turning it over. I mean, they turned the basketball over so much that it gave the Jazz a chance to hang in there.
You just got a Gordon Hayward update, I think.
He suffers a grade 1 right shoulder sprain late tonight.
Grade 1 right shoulder sprain. Status is day-to-day x-rays were negative, so that's good news.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's try to run through. There's a lot to this game, and so we'll try to run through it. The rule on the backboard, what's your understanding?
But the rule from what I understand, and I'm interested to see what comes out of this tomorrow from the officials, but the rule from what I understand, the ball is thrown inbounds. It hit the side of the backboard, which means
the bottom or the side.
The side.
Okay.
And which means it's in play. Now you know it hit the side because it hit and it ricocheted right. It didn't go straight down. It didn't go backwards. So it hit the side of the backboard. It ricocheted right, and then it hit Randy Foye. Paul Millsap steps inbound and gets the basketball. Now that's not reviewable, but from what I understand, that makes the play legal.
I will tell you from our angle on radio, and I apologize to anyone who's listening, I just could never see. There's no way to see where we sit that the ball ricocheted off Foye. I actually thought Millsap had made one of the best plays I've ever seen, which was that Millsap came in from out of bounds, and instead of letting the ball stand there, he grabbed it to get the violation instead of letting Indiana catch it and lay it up and in. It turned out that the ball had ricocheted off Foy, but I for a moment really thought that we had Albert Einstein in Paul Millsap. I thought it was as good a play as I've seen.
Well, again, I'm interested to see what the official, what the league comes up with there, but that's what I understand.
I will say I read the entire rule book on inbounds. Nowhere in the rule book does it make any differential between side back. The only line that's anywhere in the rule book that I found was a throw-in which touches the floor or any object on or outside the boundary line or touches anything above the playing surface is a violation. The ball must be thrown directly in bounds. Now that's out of the NBA rule book. So
okay, the basket backboard is in bounds.
Is it so is the basket classified as anything above the playing surface, or are they talking about jumbotrons and things of that sort? Is what I don't know.
That's what's going to be interesting tomorrow, and I think we'll all be looking to see if the officials made a mistake. And obviously the head coach Frank Vogel didn't understand it there as well, because that was his biggest argument there, is that where the ball hit and should it be Pacer basketball.
Okay, there's so many great things the Jazz did tonight, and I don't want to harp on this, but what do they need to do to finish games better? Because that was pretty colossal.
Well, every team's not going to defend you like the Pacers did, and I think what they need to do better is what the individuals need to do better. I think is the key here. Gordon lately has been the go-to guy in a situation like this. They put the ball in his hands, and he may have just gone a little bit too far and tried to do a little bit too much. He made two poor decisions. One, the closing seconds of it wasn't the ball game. Yeah, it was the closing seconds of the ball game there when he tried to go and bounce the basketball to Al Jefferson rolling to the basket. Clearly, he had a nice little 15-footer. He had worked very hard to get to that range, and he tried to force in a pass. Don't be in a hurry. Just make that play. And then, just a couple other things. Getting the ball deflected, that kind of thing. Just playing a little bit smarter. Right. Things like that happen to you, David, and it'll carry over to the next basketball game, and you'll try not. He's smart enough not to do it again.
One of the things that has gone on all season long with this team is trying to massage this roster in a way that everyone stays engaged. And there were plenty of chances this year where Earl Watson could have been banished.
Yeah.
And tonight he won a basketball game for the Jazz.
Yeah, he really did. We talked about that on the air with on the TV broadcast, and he rebounded. He kept the basketball alive. I mean, you don't see any of that in overtime. You don't see any of those plays that he made in regulation. But those were the key plays that he made by giving the Jazz second chances and not giving the Pacers another chance to win it. But his play was stellar, and it really helped the Jazz win.
I mean, there was a 1-minute possession in overtime, and he was a huge part of it. He also, you know what, when the offense really began to stagnate, I don't know if I'll box here, but I'm not always the biggest fan of the constant lob play after lob play, but tonight, when the offense was really struggling and Indiana's overplaying all your passing lanes, that's what you have to do. And on Twitter, all the Pacer fans or Pacer personnel were talking about that they have just not seen Indiana give up this many layups all season long. So you got to give credit to the point guards and Jamal and Earl who were able to deal with the overplay.
Well, one of my keys to the broadcast tonight, the key to winning the basketball game, David, was the fact that the Pacers only allowed 36 points in the paint all season long. And the Jazz are averaging 42 points in the paint. They've had nights where they've had more. I think they had 60 tonight. But that was where the Jazz were going to have to overcome the Pacers' defense there in the middle in order to win the basketball game. And I thought they did just that. So those lobs,
60 points in the paint was the final number.
Yeah. So that that's an overtime, and that's awesome. For a team that only gives up 36.
I want to point out one other thing, just because I don't think it's not. If you didn't see the game and you're coming here for kind of to give you a recap. Phil Johnson on the radio broadcast tonight really went out of his way on the job he thought Marvin Williams did on Paul George and how important that was to this game.
I think Marvin Williams and also DeMarre Carroll. I thought DeMarre Carroll did one heck of a job, especially in that fourth quarter, and then George kind of got hot there late in the fourth quarter. But I think George only had like 2 to 4 points or something like that in that fourth quarter, and DeMarre Carroll was doing an excellent job. And then, George hit a couple of buckets there late. But DeMarre Carroll is like instantly ready to play when he comes into the basketball game, and I don't think you miss a lot. I know Coach Corbin is trying to play him every other game, with Alec Burks playing one and then DeMarre Carroll playing one. I mean, that's the way it seems. That's the way he's been doing it. But DeMarre Carroll is a player that I think should be
that might be over for the time being.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
But you know what?
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed absurd when Mo Williams was back that we were playing Jamal one night and Earl the next.
Mm-hmm.
And in retrospect, it didn't cost us much at the time, and it just won us a game tonight.
Yes.
Right? Because if you'd lost Earl along the way, you don't win tonight.
Yes, that's true. That's a great point.
So,
absolutely great point.
This is an 82-game schedule, and the coaches have to coach a season. The players play a season. The coaches have to massage and manage players for a season.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about games as individual entities, but that's really the story. And the greatest I ever have seen at managing 82 was Jerry Sloan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who Ty learned from. But when everybody asked me when Jerry was coaching, what's so great about Jerry, I used to always say, the closer I get to him, the more I learn how much he understands 82 games.
Well, one of the greatest things I've heard Jerry Sloan say to anyone from players to writers and everyone else is that all he wants you to do is just be fair with him, and he'll definitely be fair with you. So I think as long as you understand that and understand where he's coming from there, then what else can you do? And I think Ty is trying to build that reputation there as well.
Well, he certainly done. Great win by the Jazz. 114, 110. It was a fabulous game. 11 lead changes, 11 ties, 10 in the first half on each side. And then we moved. The Jazz took a run, took control of the game, collapsed late, fought through it in overtime to win it, which is a pretty good statement. We've been too long here, but I would like to ask you one other question because you were so complimentary to me about the one stat that I had that was valuable. I think you opened the year in our very first conversation about this team with the most important comment of the year, which was, okay, they may be more talented than last year, but are they going to fight like last year's team?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we in your mind on that fight scale with this team right now?
What do you see now? I see the team is starting to fight, and I think the reason we're starting to see a little bit more of that, David, is because I think everyone now, and I think you and I talked about this a little bit last night in L.A., they're starting to get comfortable with their situation, with their playing time, their role on this basketball team, and they're starting to make the most of it. So the fight you saw tonight, and talent-wise, you'll see it in another ball game, but I think they're there.
That is Ron Boone. I'm David Locke. Have a good night. Thanks for tuning in.